Hi YouTube, we're back with another tribe tier list, this time for Buddy Meta. We're going to rank all 10 tribes from best to worst with opinions coming from some of the best players in the world. Sorry about my lack of uploads, I'm currently in the middle of my internship program, but I'll be back, I promise. For now, enjoy this video. Let's start off with the worst tribe in the game, which is currently Pirates. While Tethys is a strong and fun card, using that extra gold is almost always at its worst when using a traditional pirate comp. Pretty much every pirate outside of Tethys is just very weak scaling. So the best use for Tethys is actually not in a pirate setup, but using it as an auxiliary piece for like other scaling comps such as Greymane or Rock. So I'm finally caving in this tribe tier list and putting pirates in F tier. Eliza comp is also dead because the comp just gets you 4th place at best in high MR, and economy pirates revolving around record smuggler and underhand dealer is also dead because the scaling is just non-existent, and the comp is just strictly worse than the current Greymane comp, which replaces all of those pirates and just replaces them with 6 drops such as Foeber, maybe Whirl-O-Matic, just way better scaling. So the moral of the story is just don't play pirates, and if you get a Tethys, play into Greymane or Elementals instead. Because that tribe is so much worse than every other comp, that's the only comp in F tier currently. But let's get into a B tier, which are oftentimes playable but overall pretty weak. And the first one of those is Demons. Demons have some variety of builds, but none of them are particularly strong. The first strategy is the self-damage strategy, revolving around dealing damage to yourself on your turn repeatedly and scaling with Floating Watcher or Tychondrius. And I think the most popular way to play this comp actually is with Bran and constantly cycling imposing percussionists. But for some reason, they nerfed this comp since last meta with the removal of Bazaar Dealer, and so the comp is still pretty bad. The other demon comp is shop buff demons, where you buff the shop a ton and have demons just consume it. And this strategy is also just far too slow right now, and the repeated nerf of Fiery Fellblood certainly doesn't help the comp. The best thing you can be doing in demons currently is Cultist. However, using Cultist in the traditional demon sense is quite weak, as it easily gets taken down by Bramble Witch or even a proper scaling comp. Cultist is best used in an atrocity comp, which I'll touch on to later. Another B tier comp currently is Nagas. Nagas suffer from having only one viable strategy currently, which is Deep Blue Zesty, because their 6 drops, which is Lord of Gains, and 5 drops just don't provide much direction at all. Right now, Deep Blue Zesty is actually not that good because the only hero that can consistently get the setup is Queen Ashara, and Queen Ashara is removed from the game. The tribe otherwise just plays exactly like the same way as it played for the past 3 metas, but every other tribe got significantly better, so Nagas now find itself in B tier. The third tribe in the game currently is actually Quobors. Quobors fundamentally have 2 components to them: gem generation and gem scaling. Gem scaling is actually pretty balanced right now, with Piper Jazzer combo and Pokey being equally viable strategies to buff your gems. And for gem generation, you tend to use Drukhari plus some end of turn Quobors. But the craziest end of turn Quobor generation in the game right now is Murkai plus Gem Smuggler plus Bran plus Drukhari with buff gems, and this usually gets your whole board to like 2000 pretty easily. However, with the current new meta, this is no longer the only way to play Quobors. The other method of playing Quobors actually is in combat scaling Quobors, which got a lot better since last time. Previously, in combat scaling Quobors only had Bristlebog, but now they introduced 3-low Quobors, which is also not too bad of a card. It operates in the same way as Golden Beast, where all of your strength is derived from your in combat and it doesn't actually scale between turns. But this also means your mid game is a lot more stable. Although these endgame setups are extremely strong, the mid game of Quobor is generally lackluster because it's hard to scale gems and have a powerhouse scaling setup at the same exact time, and as a result, it's not that consistent. So Quobors are still ultimately B tier. Next in the B tier are Dragons. Dragons have pretty much only one comp, and no, it does not include everyone's favorite dragon, Caligos. Guys, stay away from Calgos, it's a trap. The true way to play dragons is start of combat dragons, with core units being Amber Guardian, Nightbane, and Poet. Start of combat dragons is historically strong, and the last time I did this tier list, completely ran over every single other build besides mechs. Currently, they're a lot more balanced, with the biggest change to them being moving Amber Guardian from tier 3 to tier 5. Now people aren't getting full Divine Shield dragons nearly as often and consistent, and other builds can compete with the mid-game pace of dragons. Dragons are B tier because this comp is still very susceptible to common tech cards such as Blaster and Bramblewitch, and also it requires 3 core cards to be viable, where missing any one of these core cards would significantly impact its scaling. And finally, the 5th tribe in B tier, and yes, all of these B tier tribes are so much better than Pirates, it's not even funny. They're mechs, which is also surprising because mechs were S tier the last meta tier list. Mechs mainly got a huge nerf to Scrapscraper, which was way too strong before with the Battlecry effect, because you could just repeatedly trigger its Battlecry. Now, both the magnetic variation of mechs and the Divine Shield variation of mechs are relatively balanced, but unfortunately in Hearthstone Battlegrounds, B tier stands for balanced. Okay, real talk. Scrapscraper comp with cards such as Beatboxer and Utility Drone on average takes too long to get going right now, and the mid game of that comp is still not the best. On the other hand, the Divine Shield variation that relies on Whirl-O-Matic and Charging Sarina suffers from the lack of HP that some of the top comps in the game can easily beat, which means that high attack mechs are a bit out of meta now, but they're still worth going for if you hit everything. Before we get into A tier, I want to give a huge shout out to my own website, which is hsbgguide.com, and that currently contains a list of all of the comps in the game, including their ranking, and is updated by all the best players in the world. We even recently added a hero tier list section in the website, so remember to check that out and use them in your games. Okay, back to the tier list. Alright, let's start with the first tribe in A tier, and that tribe is Elementals. Elementals are my personal favorite tribe, but the pros are relatively pessimistic on them at the moment. Elementals are pretty much the same as the past 3 seasons, where it relies heavily on Recycling Wraith, and then you add in scaling units such as Rock, Greymane, or Brand. Historically, this comp is the best scaling in the game, and it still is one of the best, but the lack of mid-game in this comp is more of a problem now, particularly in this meta compared to previous metas. Buddies create some pretty crazy power spikes that apply immediate pressure, not giving you enough time to pop off with your Recycling Wraith setup. Azrai Elementals have been on the rise, however, because spell strategies are getting more and more popular. A ton of buddies generate a ton of spells, and an early Azrai paired with a future Shellmental can scale very, very fast. Both of these strategies are going to be very good in the right situations, but also it's pretty hard to identify which situations you can play Elementals from, which makes them pretty high skill cap. Consistency wise, it's probably not as good as some of the next few tribes we're about to cover, which is why it lands at the bottom of A tier. A bit more consistent than Elementals are Beasts. Beasts were broken for a period of time when Trigger gave +1/+1 instead of +0/+2, and also Skyblazer gave +1/+2 instead of +1/+1 every time a beast gets damaged. But both cards recently got nerfed to a point where self-damage beast is actually one of the worst comps you can go for now. On the other hand, Golden comp is an absolute powerhouse recently, with multiple ways to golden core units because of buddies. Your typical golden setup is Golden Macaw plus Reborn plus Titus plus Mecha Horse, and this already gives your whole board like 30-30, and your future Mecha Horse summons 30-30 as well. This has insane mid-game power, probably one of the best in the game, meaning that you're almost guaranteed top 3 with this comp. But that's not all beasts have. Gula Cabra is a really nice unit for beasts as well that is recently added, because all of the Reborn Death Rattle units proc twice for the Gula Cabra, and also just gives some of the scaling that beasts historically lacked. If self-damage beasts were in their old form, this tribe would be for sure S tier, but its reliance on Goldren to win currently lands it in the A tier. Beasts are very stable in the mid game, but its endgame potential is nowhere close to our last tribe in the A tier, which are Murlocs. Murlocs are a definition of a hyrule comp that requires many 6-drop but it scales so much faster than everything else. Its core are cards such as Murky, Murkeye, Lookout, and Brand, but the Brand Lookout combo generates so many Murlocs you're bound to hit the Murky Murkeye setup. I would say this comp is similar to the playstyle of Elemental, where it lacks a bit in the mid game and then pulls ahead of every other comp, except with Murky Murkeye it's a lot less work and a lot more scaling. Just sit back, relax, and see your Murkeyes give 100 to your board every single turn. Now, a lot of you may be wondering why I didn't mention Bream Counter at all. That card is almost non-existent at high MMR and is typically only used as a stabilization tool now. If you have a Lookout plus Murkeye setup in the mid game, you can use Bream Counter to benefit some more from the Murlocs that you're cycling, but eventually you're looking to go into Murky Murkeye anyways, and that's just much better than playing into Bream Counter Corals. Murloc wins a lot of games, but similar to Beast, cannot be S tier because of its reliance on 2 cards, which are Brand and Murkeye. However, our first tribe in the S tier has both strong mid game and strong end game. This tribe, who was consistently F to B tier in all of my previous meta tier lists, is now at the top, and that tribe is Undeads. The biggest change to Undead from last time is the introduction of Gulakabra, which frankly is so much better than Sister Death Whisperer. The main reason why Gulakabra is so much better than Sister Death Whisperer is that it's so easy to trigger Death Rattle multiple times per unit with cards such as Rapscallion Recruiter and Mecha Horse, while Reborn is usually limited to 1 Reborn per minion. It also turns out that most of the Reborns you usually run have Death Rattle on it as well, like Morose, Eternal Summoner, Scar Skull, so there's almost no situation that you're gonna run Sister over Gulakabra. Apart from this, KT is a very important card for Undead because it allows you to play KT Morose, KT Nightbane, KT Summoner, whichever one you hit first. You may be tempted to play KT Anubarak or Champion of the Primus variation of Undead, which is attack scaling and summons, but this comp has a similar fate to Eliza comp, where you're probably getting 4th place at best at high MR, so use this comp as a mid-game stabilization tool mainly. Historically, Undead's main issue was not being able to cap out and get a 1st place, but that's no longer a problem thanks to KT Nightbane. Usually, they just stall in the mid game with Morose and Gulakabra, and then in the end, they're still able to compete with some of the best comps out there because they can scale a Nightbane and then spread the high attack from the Nightbane to great units such as Ferrex and Bramblewitch endgame, which can easily just trade 1 for 1 or 2 for 1 with some of the best comps in the game currently. It's just a very stable comp with a lot of methods to win, which is why it's in the S tier. After Undeads, we have one more tribe to cover, the undisputed current best tribe in the game. The best tribe in the game is actually not a specific tribe, but it's a combination of all the tribes, which is normally called Menagerie in the Battlegrounds community. Menagerie has always been prevalent in different metas, and it's usually centered around cards that specifically benefit from having as many tribes as on your board as possible. Previously, those cards have been Lightfang, Mithrax, Phalanx, just to name a few, but currently we also have Nala and Arid Atrocity. Nala is a Menagerie card, but currently it's actually pretty niche and is situationally playable, but it pretty consistently gets you top 4. But on the other hand, Arid Atrocity is such an insane unit, and it might not seem like it. Atrocity is an amalgam, meaning that it has the all tribe tag, which already enables a lot of synergies on its own, because you can play it in like all of the previous comps we mentioned. Not only that, you can shield it with Module and Elemental Surprise, you can reborn it with Mummifier and Scarab, you can even give Venomous to it with Belcher. It's just such a versatile unit already. Combining this with a tier 6 demon card Cultist Asara, which will resummon your Atrocity if it's your only demon, creates an unstoppable combo with a lot of synergy and utility. This comp's power is further strengthened by Tidus that makes it a force to be reckoned with and extremely hard to counter, especially if you stealth the Tidus with a Naga called Silent Swimmer. I'd like to add that this comp is probably too powerful and most likely will be nerfed pretty soon, but play it while you still can. Thank you so much to Beterbabbit, current rank 1 NA and 18k MR, who pretty much provided most of the information in this tribe tier list because I don't have much time to play the game anymore. So check out his YouTube channel. He kinda has the same quality of gameplay that I previously did, so make sure to check that out. Also, this is the final Season 7 tier list of Hearthstone Battlegrounds, so go ahead and screenshot it, share it with your friends, and the individual comps that make these tribes good are currently on my website, so don't forget about that. I'm going to head out now, but I'll be back to regular uploads very soon.